Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at JustinoTweets and at SheKnowsArsenal. Welcome, guys. Second stream of the day. There's just been so much going on that I had to do more than one stream today. And yeah. So that's what we're gonna do. That's my little explanation. It's not really an explanation. There's just so much going on. And I know that the season is done and we probably still need to wrap up kind of how we're feeling about how the season ended and kind of give our evaluations of that. And we will get to that on Sunday. Me, George, Souls, and Harry will be kind of doing a review of our predictions and talk about how the season actually unfolded, wrapping that up. And then it's full speed ahead to just transfers and, talking about our expectations for next season. So Dave asked, am I going to have guests soon? Of course, I do a lot of solo shows, but guests will be available. And like I said, I'm working on a show with Sophie and Deluded Gunner, so all that kind of stuff is going to be coming your way. Cuban sandwiches, my belly, Cuban sandwich dinner. Don't know what that means, guys. Don't know what that means. But there's about 60 of you guys in here, so like the video, subscribe to the channel. This is a new series that I'm calling Extra Time. That's more of a open, relaxed discussion around a certain topic regarding Arsenal. And so it's a little bit just more loose, like just more Q&A style. We'll go through some things and usually we'll have a guest. And today's guest is actually going to be Souls. So I'm going to go ahead and bring him in. Hey, Souls.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. So long time no stream. What have you been up to since the last time you were on SheKnowsArsenal?
Oh, it's been a long time. Obviously we had the fasting and the Ramadan and Eid and stuff, so I was obviously doing that. That's one of the reasons why it was very difficult to get on any shows. Because we had a night prayer which literally went over to about 12, 1 o'clock. So it was like impossible. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to being back. I mean, I don't know what's going to be worse, the season ending or transfer window. I don't know at the moment.
Oh my gosh. Well, the transfer window is always crazy and it's very stressful for Arsenal fans because it never feels like it's just straightforward for us. And I don't think this one is going to be any different, but I think we have a lot to be optimistic around because as much as it was a disappointment not to get into the top four, we've been assured that they're going to back Mikel Arteta. I have no doubts that we're going to bring in at least a striker and a midfielder. What else we bring in, who knows? But I am optimistic. I mean, how are you feeling now that the season is done and we're looking forward to the transfer window? Are you feeling optimistic? Are you feeling a little bit more worried or reluctant based on how things ended? Or how are you feeling?
Obviously, the ending was very disappointing, not getting top four when we pretty much had top four in our hands. But I think, annoyingly, we didn't. I know a lot of people hate it when you say this because Arsenal overachievement, top four, like that shouldn't go together. And I get it. But under the current circumstances, it would have been an overachievement to get top four from what everyone expected from the beginning of the season. I think even when we spoke, my prediction was I think we're going to get fifth, but I want to be in the conversation constantly that we can get top four. And they've done that. So they've met my sort of expectations, should I say.
Mm-hmm.
But what I think is more promising is the links because yes, there's some, I'm a bit I don't know. I'd rather go for someone, but I think they're promising because when we look at forget about everything, but if we look at profiles, I feel like they've acknowledged what's missing and what we need. Because before it used to be, why are we going for another defender or why are we going for another striker? It used to be a repeat cycle of overdoing the attack or overdoing the defense. And when the defense was good, the attack was crap, and the attack was good. But it seems like we're trying. I mean, we'll have to see because it's really early days, but at least they're trying to balance the squad as much as they can. So that's what I think. That's why I'm a bit happy. But man, we've got all or nothing to watch. Oh, I don't know if I want to put myself through it, but I know me, I will end up watching it. So yeah.
Yeah, you guys let us know in the chat if you guys are gonna watch All or Nothing. I have to be honest, like I know I'm gonna watch it.
Mm.
Like there's no reason for me not to, because I mean it's Arsenal and I just want to see what was going on. I know it's gonna be kind of I know we're gonna get bantered. Like I know it's gonna be some hard banter, but at the same time, like I want to see who are the leaders behind the scenes, how Arteta is, with the players. I want to see a lot of the things that we don't have access to, we're not privy to because we're just fans. So yeah, like I am excited about it. I did want to kind of touch on, the idea, and like there's a lot of talk around Klopp is manager of the season. Good for him. But the difference between what's going on in the in the stadium, and how the fans are reacting to the team inside the Emirates versus the discourse that's actually on social media, and how there's some sort of like a big gulf in between those two things. And I said, like, Harry talks about this all the time, that when he goes to the stadium and goes to the Emirates, even I listened to the most recent Arsenal Vision and they were talking about it, that the fans are really behind this team and the manager and the project TM, you know what I mean? And that what we say on Twitter, what we see on Twitter is not a representation of how people actually feel. How do you kind of feel about the team and the connection to the team, and the difference between that and what we see online? Is it somewhere in the middle, or do you think most fans are actually behind this group?
I think it's quite interesting. I mean, I'm a younger fan, should we say, because I've been kind of I was quite young when the Invincibles happened, so I was very sort of I kind of didn't really understand until I grew up a bit and understood actually going undefeated in the Premier League is actually quite a feat. Because at the time I was just like, oh yeah, we won the Premier League. I used to think a gold trophy was normal. Like that's showing my age. Like I never knew like it was silver. Like just if people want to have a crack, have a crack. But when I look at it, the Ashburton, what is it, Ashburton squad or Ashburton, like the fan thing that they've done. I've not
Mhm.
seen something like that in a very long time, where fans are now trying to get involved in building an atmosphere. The club coming out and saying if you don't use your season ticket for 10 games, there's a few stipulation, like if you put it up on the ticket exchange, everything like that. But basically, if you have a no show for 10 games, you can't renew your ticket. So it feels like there's a lot being done for the fans, which is promising. And when you look at the atmosphere, there's even when we've lost, even for example at the beginning of the season where things weren't so hunky dory.
Mhm.
We, at the City game, away at Etihad, the fans stayed behind and clapped, the players when they came over. There does seem to be a good connection, which is what Arteta spoke about very early into his tenure, that he wanted to build that connection with the fans and the club, and trying to do things, their sort of initiative to promote local community businesses that may have been struggling during the pandemic, like the whole fish and chip shop. There was I think a pub as well that they promoted. They're from the Arsenal perspective, they're trying to do everything they can to keep the vibes good, because we've seen it, like under Wenger when it was toxic, how much it boiled over to the players. That then boiled over to when Emery took over. That led to media leaks, that led to fights in the dressing room that were leaked, and there seemed to be a lot of animosity and a lot of hatred in the club. So I do think on Twitter that's going to happen, because you've got everyone with a voice, but you've
Mhm.
got sort of a mixed fan base when you go to say. I'm not saying social media fans aren't real fans, or people who go to stadiums are real fans, but obviously the ones who go for me are important, because they're the ones who can really influence the team. Because me on social media, they're not going to 60 minutes into a game, they're not going to pull their phone out and go, all right, okay,
Yeah.
this is it's going to be the fans in the stadium. Like, and that's what I mean. I'm not shading people who watch it, because I'm one of those who watches it on TV. I know
No,
Sabrina
yeah, and
gets
I
frustrated.
am too.
Yeah.
I think it
So I'm
is
not going to,
important to kind of know
yeah,
what the difference is, like how they actually
100,
feel. But you can feel it, like when you're watching
yeah,
it, you can see that it's like, even though like
the
I'm sitting
flags
there
are out. Yeah.
raging on my phone, like they're definitely into it and they feel connected to this group. And one thing that's been very consistent that a lot of people have said is that they feel much more connected to this group than they did the previous seasons of players. And I think that has to do with them being younger and they're really playing hard and it's like a fresh start. But ultimately, we have to support this group with the right type of experience and the right type of quality so that we keep this group together. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today in regards to the transfer window, because we know it's not just about making sure that you get a certain type of profile. It's about the experience. Do they have Premier League experience? Are they a little bit older? We have to up everything in the squad. And so to really bolster and support that young group and Arteta for this next season. So there's about 120 of you guys in the chat. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel. And this is just a little blurb from L'Équipe. We had kind of already spoken about earlier today, the William Saliba stuff, but Arsenal have informed William Saliba he will be an integral
Yeah.
and part of the squad next season, and are willing to offer him a new contract. His contract ends in 2024. Massive news because, let's keep it 100. William Saliba, that is a huge, divisive conversation amongst Arsenal fans. So, and we'll get into a little bit more of the center back situation and what that should look like next season. But let's go ahead and get stuck in. There is an article from The Athletic that's written by David Ornstein, and I think James McNicholas is also involved in it, that highlights and kind of breaks down what the transfer window is going to look like for Arsenal. What are their priorities? What players are they, the types of players and names of players that they're looking at. So we're kind of going to go through some of the blurbs from that, and also have some questions, that I'll ask Souls. And also I would love for you guys in the chat to get involved as well, because this show is nothing without you guys and what your opinions and thoughts are. So just starting out here, is, I guess, something that was kind of looming in the background for a lot of us when we didn't make top four, which is the failure to qualify for Champions League is a setback, certainly in budgetary terms. Arsenal believe, however, that they will still be able to land their key targets. They feel that the project, city, and persuasive managers still make them a compelling proposition. So, I mean, I feel like this is just so obvious as well, that if you're in Champions League, you'll have more money to spend than if you're outside of it. But that brings to kind of a lot of the frustration that Arsenal fans felt, or some Arsenal fans felt, around not pushing in January, because if you don't have top four, then it's going to hurt your window. And it almost felt like they made a conscious choice not to push in January because of the project, as if getting anything would have disrupted the project so much that we wouldn't be able to move forward. That's what it felt like to me. So knowing not having Champions League will hurt the budget, how much of a risk did the club not pushing, for the sake of the project? How much of a risk was that to not take that risk just because they want to keep the project going?
It's always going to be difficult because when you look at the sort of January targets, they were going to cost us a bit of money, a bit of change. I mean, other than maybe Arthur, who was on loan, but it would have taken up a foreign spot for another 12 months because they wanted an 18-month loan, which could have kind of changed. I mean, it's a loan, so it doesn't change the budget criteria, but I thought the midfield, as bad as it may have been in some games, was fine. It was just kind of sorting out our attack, really. They felt like they were done. Like Saka looked done. Nketiah obviously came in and rejuvenated, but then Martinelli looked a bit hit and miss. ESR looked hit and miss. So it was actually the wingers more than the striker that, I wouldn't say let us down, but looked like we needed to do something. I mean, I'm quite conflicted in this, because if it's not someone that you truly believe in, is there read? Because even Bruno Guimaraes, as good as he's done at Newcastle, and I think he would have been a brilliant signing for us, if it's not something you believe in, that I would be very skeptical if the club went out and spent 40 million. And I'd actually be quite a hypocrite if I sat there and said the club should have done that, because I said to United fans in the summer, if Ronaldo's not part of your transfer plans going into the summer, why did you go for it? And if you didn't have a striker position in mind, as in you were going to go buy a striker, why would you then sit there and just because he became available? And I think with Bruno Guimaraes, we've spoken to him, we've shown interest, but there's clearly something that either Arteta or Edu, I mean, it'd probably be more Arteta because Edu would want a Brazilian. He wants to seemingly wants to get every Brazilian he can wrap his hat, you know. So it looks like Arteta must have seen something that he's like, okay, it doesn't fit what we want to do moving forward. Maybe there's a philosophy change. Maybe there's a tactics change coming soon. We don't really know. I mean, looking at the transfer targets doesn't seem that way. But I don't know. It's very difficult because I've always said, like, I can forgive January if we do something in this window. And obviously missing out on Champions League it does hurt. But at the same time, a signing would have got us the 3 points we needed to probably get, because all we needed was one win or even 2 draws or something out of Southampton, Brighton, Crystal Palace, and obviously Newcastle. But Newcastle wouldn't have mattered if we had done our job against those 3. But then the conflicting thing is, would we have then beat Chelsea, United, West Ham? So it swings and roundabouts, but I do think a signing or 2 probably would have got us Champions League. Look at Kulusevski and Bentancur. They weren't starters for Juventus, or they weren't setting the light off in Serie A, but they came in. Kulusevski, I think he's on double goal involvement since he's come. So you never know. Like, these things can go very, very good, which they have done for Arsenal recently. Aubameyang came in January and, literally scored, like, he got to the quickest 50 goals for Arsenal amongst like many, many players. So it is hard, but I felt if we did that, then it would have eaten into our budget for the summer anyway, or we would have got a player in, which was Vlahovic, if we actually did go as hard as some people have said or not. Vlahovic would have just been an advanced signing instead of going in the summer. But yeah, I think we should have done something in hindsight. But at the same time, I'm willing to forgive it if we do our job in the summer.
Yeah, it's one of those where I just feel like, so many people were upset in real time that, it was always going to come back and be the reason why we don't get top 4 for a lot of people, because I remember being furious at the end of the January transfer window when it shut and we didn't do anything but get rid of players. And I think it was Ornstein that, like, a part of this article did talk about Vlahovic and the fact that we had major concerns around the deal because they weren't answering our phone calls and they weren't really receptive, and they kind of knew that he was going to go to Juventus. So I think a lot of that speaks to, maybe us not being so close to getting him. Like, it really was just kind of like a Hail Mary, just kind of try or at least put our name or throw our hat in the ring, but we weren't actually really in for him. The way that it kind of seemed online, because also people hype it up so that you have something to talk about in the window, but behind the scenes we may have known they're not answering our calls, so it is what it is. But it just kind of feels like, I feel like there was always an opportunity somewhere if we had had good recruitment and just thought beyond just the obvious solutions to improve the squad at least a little bit. Because I think the difference between top 4 and not was like 4 goals or something. Like, it could have just been a goal here, like a couple of goals against Brighton, or being able to put the ball in the back of the net against Southampton. That was the difference between top 4 and not. And I do hear what you're saying as well about, well, if we had won this game, well, we had beaten Chelsea and Man United. So I hear that. But like, on paper, it's kind of like we were so close. And like, had we had just had a couple more goals, and you could have, I mean, alone for Kulusevski, that's something that we were looking at as well, and we didn't do it. And if he could have scored a couple of goals for us, where would we be? So I do think the idea that we couldn't do anything because it would ruin the project is a little far-fetched and a little bit disappointing for me. I mean, coming from James Ollie, he had wrote an article as well that said they chose not to gamble everything on a Champions League push in January amid concerns it might risk Arteta's rebuild and heighten FFP concerns. They also believe that they're on track regardless of finishing 5th. And that feels like the bigger judgment call. And they just got to kind of live with this, I think, because I think we're all looking for a window that makes us feel like it was almost worth it, to not spend. But equally, knowing that Spurs are going to have money to back Conte, knowing that they're going to go big for Ten Hag at Man United, knowing that Chelsea are looking to buy freaking Neymar, the opportunity was there. And regardless to if we were on track or not, we could have jumped the line. So it is disappointing, but they made their bed, so they kind of have to lie in it. You know what I mean? Like, what are
Yeah,
what are you
because I
gonna
mean,
do?
yeah, exactly. Because even when you look at the Spurs talk at the minute, the Enid Group have bought 150 million pounds, which comes with a stipulation: if it's spent before December, their shares within the club actually increase by, I think it was, 2 or 3% or something. So they're gonna spend that money in the summer. Basically, that is what that tells me, and that's 150 million pounds. Now, when you hear about Conte and tier one journalists, they're looking to bring in 5, maybe 6 players, which is kind of what we did in that summer. And if you look at their squad already, they've got 2 world class attackers, in Son and Kane, and they've got a very good up and comer who's looking like he may become permanent in Kulusevski. They've already announced that they're going to be making the Romero signing a permanent deal. They've got the foundations of a brilliant team. They've got Lloris, who's got experience. Yes, he can be a bit of a mistake prone very often in the season. But when you look at that, it has to scare you a little bit because, and I understand, like, you look at your own team and you look and you focus on yourself because that's the only way you can move forward. But you've got to think, like, with Conte at the helm, what Spurs could do, because changing those fullbacks is really a good solution. And then, because
Yeah.
even if they bring in one centre back and change the fullbacks, that's enough for me for them to get top 4 again and do something in cup competitions under Conte. So I don't know. It's a very we need to focus on ourselves. I'm trying to not get involved in what Spurs are doing and United are doing because it's very dangerous, because it'll make everything we do but they got Frankie de Jong and we got Tielemans, and it could turn out that Tielemans is actually a better signing instead of de Jong. Like, we never know. So I'm trying to hold
Yeah.
stead at the minute.
Yeah, we do kind of have to focus on ourselves. It's just one of those where it's like, if everything goes the way you think it's going to go on paper, it will be more difficult than to make top 4, to progress. But nothing ever goes the way we expect it to. So we just kind of have to move forward, like, anyway. So just kind of moving on here in terms of what our priorities are in the transfer window. Ornstein had said that Arsenal's priority in this transfer window is a center forward. They also intend to add a number 8 and are interested in signing a left-sided center back to support Gabriel. Arsenal hope to add a small number of players, but lift the quality of the squad substantially. So we've heard this a couple of times, that it's not going to be about quantity, it's going to be about quality. But because they've, gotten rid of so many players, it's kind of like, well, we do need like 5 or 6 players, but like, it looks like they may be looking at 3, maybe 4. And so, like, if they went into the window and spent more and it was more about quality versus quantity, then would one center forward, one midfielder, and a left-sided center back for you and the chat, would that be enough? Or is it more about what does that quality look like? Because we know that, like, our starting 11 was really strong. And if you do this is mostly about our starting 11, the center forward and the midfielder is. But when you kind of peel back the layer of that starting 11, what our biggest issue is that the backups weren't good enough. So if number 1 midfielder gets injured, who's up next? If the number 1 center forward gets injured, who's up? And that was more of our issue, and we'll be in 4 competitions. So for you, if the quality is up there, is that enough? Or do you feel like we need to spread that 150 to 200 million, kind of pounds over more players?
It's a tough one because I feel like whoever's starting now, let's say Granit Xhaka, he's going to move to the bench. So if he becomes a bench option, he's good enough for me to come into the team and do a job. But then also on the flip side, it allows us to rotate, which is one of the keys why I want quality over quantity as well. Because let's say, for example, Partey needs a rest before that injury comes in. We now don't feel like we have to play Partey. I feel like right now it's Taney or bust, it's Partey or bust, or it's Tommy, and we're rushing them back, or we're overplaying them, or we're giving them too many games than they probably should be playing. Even though the medical staff are like, look, he's on the brink of being injured, but it's an important game. We need to win this, so Arteta's risking it. But I feel like once he gets the quality and he trusts that quality, he might be like to Partey, okay, look, we're playing Leeds. I don't really need you in a game like this. So we're playing a lower opposition that we can do with Xhaka coming in and Partey having a rest or whatever. And so there are two sides to it, and I feel that it's going to be difficult because we've got to balance obviously Europa League, FA Cup, Carabao Cup, and the Premier League as well as we can. And we have got an already thin squad, and just adding maybe 3, even 4 players isn't enough to compete in all competitions. So it comes down to, for me, which is he going to sacrifice? I feel like we can kind of rule out the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup. As much as I hate to do that, I just feel like the way and how thin it is, we're probably going to be able to compete properly in 2 cup competitions. And that's going to, I think the primary focus should be trying to get top 4 and trying to get Europa League. And if we can, go for an FA Cup, but I don't think we should make it a priority where we risk players in that. But it should just be younger players or the fringe players just trying to do the job. And if they don't, they don't. As bad as it sounds, 3 years into a project, but I think obviously with Saliba coming back, one defender like an Aaron Hickey coming in could be perfect, and then someone, I think it was I can't remember who the other left centre back that we're linked to, but I do feel like a young up and coming centre back would be okay, like a cheap £5-10 million one. That I'm not too bothered by too much quality, because Gabriel doesn't get injured. If he does, we've got Saliba, we've got Tomiyasu who can fill in. But I feel the midfield and the striker need to be quality regardless of anything. So
Yeah.
I think it's a bit of both. We can do with
Yeah.
not great quality, but those positions has to be 100% quality over anything.
What I will say is that this does say that Arsenal's priority. So these are the most important things. And maybe these are the positions that they're actually willing to spend whatever the Cronkies are giving us. And then everything else will come after player sales, because we got to sell Bellerin, got to sell Torreira, you got to sell Ainsley Maitland-Niles. These players, if you go ahead and sell them, and even maybe Pepe as well, that's a good chunk of money that can go to buying fullbacks and stuff like that, because we know we need fullbacks. Like, we know we need those backup players. But if these are their priorities, they may be just saying, these are what we know for sure we're going to get, and everything else is kind of going to be based on circumstance. As Reggie says that Edu mentioned earlier this year that they wanted 22 field players. So we do need to fill those numbers. We need 25 players. We need a full roster. I also want to let you guys know that a report came out. I forget where it was from, but they did say that they're going to bring Aziz, Hutchinson, and Charlie Patino into the first team. So they may also be looking to make up the numbers by using some of our academy players as well. But these look like the main priorities. So I would expect, at least for center forward and midfield, for those signings to be really good signings, players that move the needle. So, Arsenal need 1 to 2 strikers, and that puts the likes of Gabriel Jesus, Abraham, Calvert-Lewin, Scamacca, and Lozek in the frame. These are players that probably have been spoken about, or they spoke to the agents they're interested in. We've spoken about a number of these players, here on this channel, so we won't go too deep into that right now. Arsenal are still optimistic that their interest in Gabriel Jesus will bear fruit. Jesus is Arsenal's #1 target. He is seen as the perfect fit for their attack. If a deal is to be struck, then Edu will be key to any negotiations. So obviously, I think Gabriel Jesus does divide opinion within the Arsenal fan base. There's some, people that don't like that profile. They don't think he's good enough. He's a Manchester City reject, all this types of stuff. And, I don't know. For me, I think that he ticks a lot of the boxes except for the physical aerial threat, that kind of thing, like that physical monster. He doesn't really have that in him, but he has all the other things. Where do you stand with Gabriel Jesus at the moment? Because it looks like a signing that is within our price range. Um, he has all the connections with Arteta and Adu, and a lot of the reports say that it could be done quite soon. So where are you with Gabriel Jesus?
No, I love it. I think he's what we need in that centre forward, especially for a plan A going into the game. Obviously, you can talk about plan B is like having a physical aerial threat as a plan B, like a DCL coming in, or like a Giroud type, of profile. But for me, like Jesus is brilliant in terms of what he can do from the right forward to centre forward. He's a pressing forward, which is what seemingly Arteta really likes. But he's also someone who can connect play, but also be in the box at the right time. When you look at Man City, when they do introduce Jesus, especially this season, he's always at the end of cutbacks. The minute they play that style of crossing and cutting back play, he's brilliant. He's there, he's poaching the ball, and he's been lethal for them. You know, so when you look at the way we play and the way that City play, it's fairly similar in the way we want to build up. So he'll have an understanding, so he'll fit right in. Arteta knows him personally, obviously coaching him. So it's one of those where I think it's a no-brainer at what 40 million, 60 million. You're not going to get much better than that at the moment in the way the striker market's looking at the moment. Premier League proven, that's something that holds weight. He's done it in the Prem. He's been in the Champions League, done it in Europe. He's got the mentality of a winner. He's 25, wanting to push for the Brazilian team. So he's still got motivation to why he wants to perform. So it's not like one of these ones where he's coming from a big team that's winning and he's going to come here and just collect a paycheck. He said it. The reason why he's looking for that move is to get into the Brazilian team for the World Cup. So he's got all the motivation to try and do good.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see any real negatives to the signing, especially for where we are. And I get that it feels underwhelming because he's not the type of name that's going to get people off their seats, but the guy is freaking quality. Like, you watch him play, like he's a really really just good footballer, and we lack technical quality, we lack intensity, we lack the ability to press. You don't necessarily need to be tall to be an aerial threat. I've seen Gabriel Jesus score goals with his head, and he has the experience of winning. It's not just experience in competitions, it's winning them. And so at 25, I do think that this is a good opportunity for us, especially if we can get it done for the fee that's being banded around. The Eddie makes an interesting comment, and I want to know kind of what you think about this, because he says I only dislike Jesus because he won't help us with our biggest problem, that is the low block. Do you agree with that? Because I think Manchester City play against a lot of low blocks. That's pretty much all they play against. And I think somebody like a Nunez doesn't help us with a low block, but Gabriel Jesus, with his ability, close control, the ability to work in small pockets, actually would be the opposite of that, would be able to unlock a low block. What do you think?
No, 100%. I think you nailed it. The other thing that people kind of forget is how versatile he is. He can interchange with the front three very easily. He's comfortable playing out wide. He's still got pace in his game, his close control and his technical ability to kind of find space for himself. But the other thing that people forget is how good he is at finding space within the box for cutbacks or crosses. That goes very under the radar. Like his off the ball movement is elite. Like it is brilliant to find space and just to be there. So one of the things is I mean, this is where that question of like you need a plan A and a plan B anyway. You'll always need that. I don't think there's a single striker in world football who fits both molds. That if things aren't going the way you want them to, that they can change their style. There's very little, I think. Even Lewandowski doesn't fit that, and he's one of the world's, like, he's the best striker in the world. Like, if you need to then run in behind, you're not going to have Lewandowski, are you? So, it's always going to be the case of you need plan A and a plan B. But I feel like Jesus has got attributes to help us in those situations. But also, if you give him the ball, there are moments where he's done things from nothing. So there is that ability. He's also got a good long shot on him, which is something that goes under the radar. I don't know. I don't see many flaws to the point where I flaw his game low blocks. Yeah, you can go get like a Calvert-Lewin, or you can go get an Ivan Toney or a physical target man striker if you really wanted. But I feel having Jesus just offers us so much.
Yeah, I agree with that. So moving forward, and then I've starred a lot of your guys' comments because it's kind of leading me into another point. But Arteta and Edu remain firm admirers of Lautaro Martinez. However, he prefers to play in a front two. I think that's something that we've spoken about, is that he doesn't really play as a lone striker. I get that for Argentina, they play like a 4-3-3, so it's fine. But on a daily basis, playing for Inter, he usually plays in a two, and we don't play that way. Victor Osimhen is another player Arsenal have followed closely. There's also an acceptance negotiating with De Laurentiis could be challenging. So, speaking of like Osimhen, we've kind of spoken about him instead of, or in part, like in conjunction with, or added to Gabriel Jesus. And does it feel far-fetched and unrealistic to see a scenario where we bring in the both of them? Or do you think it's something like Osimhen or Jesus plus another attacker? Because Jesus, that deal looks advanced, but Charles Watts said last week we spoke to Osimhen's agent. So do you think it's a matter of just like, okay, we know we have Jesus, but let's see what we can do with Osimhen, or keep Osimhen under wraps because we may try to get him as well? I think we need both, but am I living in a fantasy world where we couldn't get the two of them? What do you think?
It could be two things. It could be because City did obviously raise the price, or the asking price of Jesus. I don't know how true it is, but from my understanding, it was 40 million originally, and it's gone up to like 60 million recently. And I think that might just be down to playing into the desperation of Arsenal, knowing that, because they didn't get Champions League, the fans are a little bit on their case. So let's try and get as much as we can, which is fine. Like, that's what a club needs to do. And I think what they're doing is they're doing it to be like, look, we have got other options. Like, we don't need Gabriel Jesus as bad as you're saying. We can go get Osimhen now, and we'll come back for Jesus next season. We'll just tell him, stay at City for another season, and we'll come in, get you on a free, and we'll give you a good deal. They could be playing the game as well. And if that's, well, I don't really think that that's smart, but if they do that, that's like, all right, fair enough. You guys have changed. But that's the thing. Like, sometimes in these things, you have to read into them that the transfer market is a game, and you have to play those mind games with other clubs, because they might be looking at it. Like, for example, Vlahovic, it looked like all we wanted was Vlahovic, and Florentina played into the hands of that and said, okay, then if you want him so badly, pay us 75 million. And then Juventus are like, crap, we're going to lose the guy we want, so we may as well fork up 75 million, or whatever the fee came to. So for me, I think they are playing that mind game with them, saying, look, we can, and it could end up being that we're actually just in for both of them. We want both. It's not unrealistic, because if you look at it, I mean, Osimhen is very expensive in terms of their asking price is 100 million, which is huge. But then when you look at Jesus's price, it's quite reasonable at like 40 to 60 million. So for a combined fee of like, 140 to 150 million, so making them like 75 million each, 70 million, isn't actually that bad when you're looking at what previous quotes have said. We're looking to raise the quality of the team. That definitely improves the quality. You have a Europa League striker, or you can use someone in the cup competition solely and have one of them for the Premier League, and there's no drop off at all.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it, and when they say we're trying to up the quality substantially, that's upping the quality substantially to me. Tielemans, Jesus, Osimhen, that is for me, like, would be like, that's what I would accept. Not like I'm sitting there and they're asking me, but I would accept something like that if that meant that, like, and also accept that we won't be able to address every other thing. If you brought Osimhen, Jesus, and Tielemans, and maybe let's say Hickey, and that's all we could do, then I would be like, okay, then having Xhaka and El Neni, we can do that for another season because you've really upped the quality of the starting 11 substantially, like you said. But if it's Gabriel Jesus and Nketiah and Tielemans and Hickey, you see what I'm saying? You see how that like feels a little bit less substantial? I mean, Josh says, I don't think another forward comes in besides Jesus and Eddie, which ain't enough. O'Malley says, Jesus plus Osimhen would be amazing. We need to create a team to compete in the Champions League group stages. That's who we'll be completing with in the Europa League knockout stage when they fall out of Champions League. Ty Jr. says, I thought Gabriel Jesus was a no-brainer, but admittedly, I don't want him every week. That's also like, we need something different, and Jesus and Nketiah, to me, that's not different enough either. So there's that. Hey Boss says, Osimhen, Jesus, and Tielemans is a good haul of difference makers if the budget stretched to signing all three. So we're all kind of saying the same things, that like, if you're going to talk about upping the quality substantially, it kind of has to be both. It can't just be, Jesus plus Cody Gakpo, and that's substantially upping the quality. You know what I mean? I mean, I
It's
don't
not
know.
out of the realms of like the budget, because even if you look at, okay, let's say for example we went with Osimhen and Jays. For me, I think that gets done within 140 to 150 million. If you look at even players who were selling, even let's say we get 10, let's say out of all 6-7 players that are going, who are on loan, we get even 30-40 million. That ups our 150 to about 180. Tielemans is coming in for 100 and he's coming in for 25 million, which will be 175 million, and then Hickey's about 20 million. So in total we'd be spending about 180 to 190 million in total in these sort of window. For me, that's not a lot of money. Like if you look at it, if 150 is your initial budget, I'm sure there'll be sales done that will mark to the region of 30 to 40 million. So I do think there is a reality where budget wise we can get this done, and also they can keep to their names of like, yeah, we are substantial. So I think all of what we've said can be done if they're smart. But again, we've never seen them be smart. They've done good transfers last season, but have they been smart in the window? I don't know yet. That's the question.
All right, let me read some of these super chats as well. She Knows Football says, welcome home, Souls. Isn't this where you started? I feel like you were on some other channels before you were on here, right?
No, but it was you that started it all, though.
Oh, okay. Got it. O'Malley says, thank you so much for your super chat. Says Burnley home draw and the first game of the season as our games that lost us Champions League. Shampton. I think that's Southampton. Crystal Palace and Brighton have been our bogey teams for 3 or 4 years. I can't really disagree with that. I mean, if you just beat Burnley, then we don't have this question. We don't have these issues either. She Knows Football again. Thank you so much for your super chat. Says, I hope this channel gets huge. Why I love to super chat, because I know other channels are getting real worried and I don't want it. I'm listening. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Shushman says, once a gunner, always a runner, no top 4 next season. Laugh out loud and dead face. Thank you. And She Knows Football, thank you so much again for your super chat. So yeah, we're kind of all agreeing the same things, that like, that would be what, like, there's some people that are saying that we won't get it. And, Osimhen may be like a smokescreen so that we can get the Jesus deal done. But ultimately, if you bring in Gabriel Jesus, I still expect you to bring in another top quality forward, because that ain't enough. Like, that's not lifting the level substantially, especially if you just go get somebody that plays in another league that, it's just not good enough. You know what I mean? So yeah. Yo-Yo says Gabriel Jesus arrival means less of ESR Martinelli, not necessarily no osimhen or DCL. Craig says we've got super Mikel Arteta, nothing at the back, nothing in the attack. We are on a way to winning F all. All right, nice song. A cow says we wanted to buy Vlahovic for 65 million, so why not use the same money to bring in osimhen? And Thunder Road says I'd rather get Patrick Schick than osimhen, cheaper also. So yeah, there's some other options in there. Mackie says osimhen, I think we can get for 80 million. Jesus for 40, 120. Add Hickey and Tielemans, and that's 165. Defo room for another big player after sales.
Yeah.
That's the kind of window that ups the. Otherwise, you're just talking about doing the same. That's the same. So yeah, but whether or not Arsenal will sign a second striker is likely to hinge on the future of Eddie Nketiah. Fresh terms remain on the table, and Arsenal are more than hopeful. Are a little more hopeful after a run of starts. He may be persuaded to sign it. I said this on the earlier stream. I want him to go. I just don't. I have this weird feeling that, the idea that he never got playing time, I think, is a stretch considering when I went to the Emirates in February of 2020, he was starting over Lacazette. So, he came back from Leeds and he was starting games for Arsenal. So we had seen him play. He just wasn't doing anything. And now that he's playing for, his future, now he's scoring goals. And I'm just like, at the end of the day, if our main striker, let's say it's Gabriel Jesus, is out for 9 months because he did his cruise ship, do you expect Eddie Nketiah to get us through, Europa League and the Premier League? Is he enough to be a number 2? That's my question to you, Souls, and the chat. He also wants 100K per week, and it's like, damn.
Technically, my answers are number 3 because I don't. This is where I don't mind someone like him playing in the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup for us, because then you can leave your 2 main strikers to focus on the league and the Europa or the European competition. When obviously in this case it's Europa League for us, but he's not going to settle for that. I just think for himself and for Arsenal, it's time to go. In the most respectful way. I'm not throwing shade. I do think he'll become a good player. I do think he'll be someone that will really suit a Crystal Palace, or if he went to an Aston Villa, someone in the mid-table pushing for a Europa League spot or trying to fight for a European spot. But I just don't think he's good enough to elevate us to where we want to be, even as a number 2. Don't forget, Jesus does come with injury problems. Osimhen does come with injury problems. I'm not saying they're huge and they're going to be out for huge parts of the season, but there are games or 2 where they will miss here and there. So you are going to see, and this is the thing, the number 2 you're going to see at some point, whether it's Jesus and Osimhen, you're going to see one or the other come in because one of them's injured. So that comes with the risk of buying either one of them. Their injury problems, they could come to Arsenal and they're fine. They never get injured. That's obviously the hope. But if you're looking at it now, Osimhen was out for Napoli. Jesus has been out with an injury with City, as much as he's been on the bench. So no, I can't do it again where I rely on Nketiah. If he was good enough, we would have got top 4, but clearly he wasn't. I'm not saying he was the reason or the sole reason. I felt like he'd done well. I think he'd done good enough, but not for me to sit here and go, yeah, he can be a number 2. Number 3, maybe a number 4, yeah, but not anywhere near the next person to come in for it.
And he's not going to sign a contract to be the 3rd choice. They have to offer him minutes. And I can see Arteta being like, you'll have Europa League minutes, but I just fear that the main striker gets injured and we're back to relying upon Eddie, Martinelli, and ESR to score all of our goals. And so for our sake, I just hope he says no, so that the team, the club, has to go out and buy 2 attackers that are experienced and have goals in them, because that could be a very, very bad decision. And I just don't think it's the right time. And I haven't seen enough from Nketiah where I'm like, yeah, for sure, he could be a backup. nah, like it just is it's a no for me. Ryan says, right, Palace had a deal in place but couldn't come to term with them. I mean, the issue with Nketiah is that he wants high wages, but at this point, because we're not trying to sell him, it doesn't matter. You know, he'll have to figure out his future on his own. But we couldn't sell him because he wanted very high wages, and nobody wanted to pay him that. Eunice says Osimhen is never going to happen. Jesus plus Lautaro or Dominic is very possible. Fair enough. Praise says if Arsenal buy Jesus, then they have renewed Balogun. Then who is the third striker? If it's not Nketiah, are we going to try to survive with Martinelli at false nine? Well, I mean, if you buy Jesus, then the other attacker that you buy has to be able to play striker as well. So that's where like somebody like a Cody Gakpo makes sense. Then he can play through the middle as well. But I don't know. I don't know if we necessarily need a third striker. We just need somebody else that can score goals, and we'll make it through. Tommy says Nketiah is easily good enough to be number 2 easily. Yo-Yo says Arteta rates Eddie. That's all that matters. Ultimately, like El Neni, Xhaka, and Holding, it's on the manager. But I mean, the best thing about it is that Eddie, I think, rates himself enough to want to go. And so that'll stop us from keeping all these guys. And I have to say, one of the more annoying things about the Arteta era, beyond just like, finishing 8th and missing out on top 4, has been this want to keep a lot of the really average players. I think we should just get rid of them. Tony says, I think the question is, what do we want from our number 2? I mean, I told you what my parameters are. Basically, I want somebody who, if our number 1 striker does their cruciate and they're out for the entire season, that person can carry us through Europa League and Premier League. If you want to put a number on it, I think I don't know. So how many goals do you think our backup needs? What do you want?
I don't think it's necessarily numbers. I think it's more, if I'm looking at that, I always use the example, like we're playing Liverpool, let's say, and let's say Jesus is injured. Are you going to sit there and tell me you're confident we're going to beat Liverpool because we've got Nketiah in the team? Or are you going to tell me we've got a chance because we've got osimhen in the team? That's my parameters for a number 2. I don't want a quality. I think we need to start raising, like so far we've let, the project play the way it needs to play, which is fine, because there needs to be a foundation, which is fine. But now we need to start demanding that, because look at City. Like if you're looking at City, right, Raheem Sterling's injured, they're bringing Jack Grealish, or if someone's injured, they've got another, like, it's like they're not worried, like, oh, we've got an injury, yeah, cool. Like they had no defenders, and not a single City fan that I spoke to was like, yeah, we're not bottling this. And that's what I want to feel. I just want to feel like whoever comes in, we're not worried. Like we're looking at that lineup and going, oh, for God's sakes, all right, we've got, and that's not shade on Eddie, by the way, but I just don't want to feel that way. I just want to look at it and go, all right, you know what? We still got a chance. That's all I want to feel. Whether it's Xhaka does that, whether it's whoever, like I just want to feel content and go, there's no drop off. There's no, or there's not a huge drop off in quality. That's all.
Mahari says Eddie shouldn't be dismissed so easily. His goal scoring towards the end of the season, when he actually got a run of games, was fine for him. He could be a hidden gem. So I guess let me ask you this question. If Eddie was on somebody else's team and he had because basically, let me look at something really quick. Give me 1 second. Let me look at something really quick. All right. Broja in 32 matches had 6 goals. Eddie Nketiah in 21 matches had 5 goals and 1 assist. So if Eddie was somewhere else on Southampton and he wasn't Eddie Nketiah, would we feel differently? Because there's a lot of Arsenal fans that want Broja. He has 1 more goal than Eddie with 10 more appearances. So is it a little bit of just like it's Eddie and our thoughts around Eddie? Because I know I have preconceived notions around Eddie, like because I just have never felt like he was good enough. But maybe if you put it in that perspective, that Broja only has one more goal than him, and Arsenal fans were twerking hard as hell for Broja. Maybe it's a little bit about just letting go of those preconceived notions.
It's tough, isn't it? It's always going to be tough because there's always going to be people who prefer a player to another player. But I just think we're at that point we need to raise the levels. We need to look. And look, Nketiah as a profile, I really like. I do think he could be that player that we regret letting go of. But we're not going to be able to do enough for his development. I think he's had enough opportunities to prove himself. We've sent him on loan, didn't work out. And the thing is, we're looking at it from a very, very small sample size. We're looking at literally 6 to 7 game run, and we're basing that to give him a new contract. When the club is saying if he goes, we're gonna have to go and get someone big. I'd rather go get someone big than look. All right, this is the real question. Like, if an opposition comes at you with Eddie and Nketiah, or they come at you with Jesus, or they come at with you Osimhen, which of the two would you be more afraid of? Or which of out of the three, which one would you be afraid of? Osimhen or Jesus, and not really Nketiah? You'd be like, we can kind of handle him. That shouldn't be too much of an issue.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Eunice asks, what do you think about Dominic Calvert-Lewin? He's been linked with the club. I put out there, not necessarily from me. I know like George is a big fan of Dominic Calvert-Lewin. There is a section of the fan base that really likes him as a backup, different look striker. Is that not somebody that you can see coming in and doing something different? I mean, if Eddie were not to re-sign, would Dominic Calvert-Lewin be a good option for that backup? Like, if Gabriel Jesus is not available and you had to go to, let's just say, Selhurst Park, would you feel confident with Dominic Calvert-Lewin up top?
Oh yeah, 100. I actually really like him as an option. I don't know if I'd want him as a starting option just because he's very like hit and go at the minute with how available he is. But yeah, as a backup, perfect. Nurse that injury. He can come in and be a plan B. He's aerial. He's physical. He adds a different dimension to what we haven't got, which is physicality. He'll allow Odegaard to play a lot better because he can be a springboard for him. And I do think that there are a lot of pros. Obviously, there's always going to be cons. I feel like strikers are the hardest to judge because they can be very, very good and then they can come to you and it doesn't work out. Or they could be really bad somewhere and they can come to you and absolutely dominate it. But I look at the way we play, and if there are moments where Jesus isn't having a good time, can DCL come in and change that? I do think he can. He can come in on the cutbacks. He's really good in the box, and he has got that ability just to hold up play and slow it down if we need to, and just try and grab a foothold. Because I feel like at Newcastle, if we had a DCL, we probably would have done a lot better because he would have been someone just to hold the ball a bit and just kill off any momentum that Newcastle are trying to play with, and just slow the press, slow the tempo of the game down. So I would as an option, as a second option, but I'd still want that first option to come in and then a DCL coming in. That would be more what I think.
Yeah. And what I would say about the whole DCL thing is I'm big on looking at the environment and the circumstances around a player. And this is similar to what, I said about Tielemans, is that if the entire team is underperforming, then I have a hard time just saying that player is crap because they're also underperforming in a team that's really bad. Last season, when Dominic Calvert-Lewin was playing with a settled midfield and behind him, James Rodriguez, Decore, and Alon, he scored 15 goals. Now, that's not Aubameyang at his peak numbers, but that's 15 goals that I think we would have bitten somebody's hands off for. So there's a better player in there than the player that we saw this season that had major injury concerns and, honestly was playing in one of the worst teams in the Premier League this season. So that was going through a massive decline. So for me, like, I could see something like this happening. I know I saw that, in this Athletic article that Arsenal are a little bit leery of Dominic Calvert-Lewin's form and his injury record. But when you look at the availability of the types of strikers that, we need, which is like a tall physical presence, beyond Osimhen, who's going to cost an arm and a leg, and beyond Tammy Abraham, who are probably not going to be able to get off of Roma, he's kind of like a glaring, option there. I know he would die to come to Arsenal, and honestly, he probably wouldn't mind sitting behind Gabriel Jesus in some games. So, it's one of those where, I could see it happening. I wouldn't die, but it wouldn't get me off my chair. Tony says, would you take Eddie as a number 2 if we get everything else done? So you get the top striker, you get the, because if you keep Eddie, then you got to get another midfielder. You got to get 2. You got to get fullbacks as well. So if you can get everything on your shopping list, is it okay to have Eddie as a number 2? That's the only, I think, benefit of having him as a number 2 is you can get something else. But is that a good enough reason? I don't know.
Because it's tough.
You're not sold. You're not sold.
Yeah, it is because it depends though. Because now the midfield, now my levels for the midfield raise. Because if you're telling me I can only get 1, because we're meant to be getting a top midfielder and 2 strikers, so now I want 2 top midfielders and 1 top striker choice. So you're gonna have to give me what I want now. So, do you know what? If we did, let's say for example, we did go get like a Basuma, we then gone and got Tielemans or a Noir or someone of that mold, and then we went and got, let's say Aaron Hickey comes in, and then we do solve the back room, like the back issue, and then Nketiah is a number 2, and we got Jesus. I'd feel a lot more confident going in because I do think Nketiah, early stages of the Europa League, perfect. You can play that. Early stages of the FA Cup and stuff like that are covered. So, but it'd have to be level raises for me to be like, all right, I can understand why you kept Nketiah.
I hear that 100%. There's 250 of you guys watching, so like the video, subscribe to the channel. So we know the midfield signing is probably going to be Tielemans. I don't think we need to beat that dead horse again. We know divisive. A lot of people don't rate him. La 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 la. So we won't go into that. But I pulled this one because I thought that this was a interesting point, that adding fullbacks is a possibility, but this could be dependent on players leaving. So I'm thinking that's the Bellerins and these guys leaving. Bellerin, Torreira, and Maitland-Niles. Arsenal admire Aaron Hickey, but as of yet, there's been no formal bid. On the opposite flank, the club are pleased with the job Cedric has done as Tomiyasu's understudy. So there's a lot to unpack here. We need a left back cover badly. Nuno Tavares, that signing, it didn't work, did it? In terms of Tavares, away from what he can do as a backup for Tierney, I think is an interesting player with a lot of athleticism that could be useful. But in terms of stepping in for Kieran Tierney, Arteta was so reluctant to use him, especially after Nottingham Forest, or actually after Liverpool. So Liverpool away. So we desperately need that signing. I don't care what we do. You got to bring in a backup left back. We can't be seeing Nuno Tavares. But in regards to Cedric being a good backup for Tomiyasu, this is why I also think they need to get Aaron Hickey, because I know they're saying this, but I feel like having somebody like Aaron Hickey that can go on both sides would be beneficial, because I'm not trying to see Cedric next season. I think they lied when they said that he has good delivery. Somebody lied. Get him off of corners, get him off of free kicks. What is he doing? I think Cedric is one of them. It didn't cost us a lot, but it did cost me a lot to watch Cedric play for Arsenal this season. I mean, what do you think about the fullback situation? I mean, do you feel like left back needs to be addressed? With Newcastle being interested in Kieran Tierney, would you entertain a 50 million pound bid for Kieran Tierney? And Cedric, I mean, do you think he's an okay backup, knowing that Tomiyasu is also kind of injury prone?
It's an interesting one because I mean Saliba could be slotting into that right back position as well, especially with the way we play like an invert, or Ben White could be going into there, um, because of the way we invert our right back anyway. But do you know what? I don't think Cedric did as bad as I thought, but then again, my standards for Cedric are low anyway, so maybe it wasn't that difficult for him to impress me. But actually, impress is a bit of a strong word, but just to be like, all right, you know what, you did all right. But no, when you then break it, then when you start looking into it deeply, you realize, you know what? I don't know how I don't know how I managed through, because when you look at Tomiyasu playing, like he's got double the clean sheets in less games than Cedric has. Tierney to Tavares, you know, the clean sheet difference is huge. And I was like, I didn't realize how bad it was. But then when you start looking at it, when they started to get a run of games, we couldn't buy a clean sheet. We couldn't do anything to get like Ramsdale started looking hella suspect. Gabriel started looking hella suspect. White started looking suspect. Like everyone just like we started doubting players that we didn't doubt, and we were like, "Is Gabriel as good as he is?" And then we realized, nah, it was just Tavares next to him. But you know what? Like, I do look. Aaron Hickey coming in would be
I'm
brilliant.
dead.
No, it's not even an agenda. Like, the other thing is, yeah, it's not even an agenda anymore. It's just if you're
No,
crap like that.
Cedric was, I mean, even on the last day of the season, when nothing mattered, Cedric was killing me, you
Oh,
guys,
I mean,
honestly.
I can't really say I invested my time watching that, because I kind of was like, oh, we scored again. Nice goal. And do you know what it was? I had the title race on the other screens, and I was more interested in what was going on in that, because I was like, we've not really got anything to play for. So I was watching it, and I was like, nice goal. So now you turn up. I was kind of petty, I'll be honest, in that game.
Mm.
So, but yeah. Nah, do you know what? We need better, man. We need better. Like Tavares could become something, but I feel like he's a left winger, and we've got too many of them anyway. And maybe loan him out and see how he does. But nah, for me, I can't go through Cedric and Tavares again. I can't do it. Oh, imagine them in like even the Europa League. Oh no. Oh,
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that our last two seasons have been derailed by our fullback backups, the lack of having them and the ones that we have. Cedric was meant to be this guy that can fill in on both sides, and the level drops off so badly because he has a lack of physicality. He's not a very good defender. And going forward, I mean, come on now. Like people it's he's really suspect going forward. And so for me it's kind of like this has to be addressed, like because we know Kieran Tierney and Tomiyasu are going to get injured next season. So there has to be something better there. But if I had to choose between right back and left back, I would say that left back probably is more of an issue because you can actually move Ben White to right back if you have to. There's nobody that you can move from center back to left back. Like there's just, I mean, you could move Tomiyasu, but Tomiyasu's your number one right back, as we saw. So adding a left back and adding somebody like Aaron Hickey would be really beneficial to be able to do both sides without having to use more cash. There was a question here around would you take Bellerin to the end of his contract back, like if that meant that Cedric leaves. Bellerin probably will come back for preseason because Betis are acting like they can't buy him. His wages are an issue. He'll have to come back down off his wages. But I mean, would you take Bellerin and in hopes that, then you could get rid of Cedric? Or I mean, that just feels like swapping something bad for something bad. Like, because Bellerin he's not very good. Like,
yeah.
so what do you think?
I mean, we literally got rid of Bellerin to solve a problem, to bring him back to be a problem. Like, it doesn't make any sense in my head. Like, why would we um want to bring him back? Like, he wasn't good enough, hence why we wanted to try and sell him, but obviously the loan option was there, so that's what we did. I just think I don't think we need to. I think a versatile fullback as a backup just for both positions will be fine, because luckily now we're not weakening our centre back by putting White at right back, because that's what was happening this season. Ben White would go into right back and Holding would come in, so you'd lose something. But obviously, hopefully if Saliba now does decide to stay, which it looks like he is, you're not actually losing quality in any of the positions. Saliba comes in for White, White goes into right back, and then whoever you want a left back can come in. So if that's Aaron Hickey or Kieran Tierney, or even if you wanted to put Tomiyasu there, just because you've got no left back option. So nah, we can let Bellerin and Cedric go and just bring Aaron Hickey in, and I feel like we're good enough. We've got enough there to get by, and I don't think there should be that. I mean, if we're having that many issues again, I'd really question the fitness staff more than how many sides, because then we just need like 3 sets of defenses, and that's just too many.
Yeah, and a lot of people are mentioning Molina. That is the right back that I would go get, especially because we have a player there that they desperately want. I watched a game that I watched Bologna play Udinese just so I could watch all 3 of them. So I could watch Molina and Aaron Hickey and Mari all at the same time. Mari's a boss there. Mari is like their top player. Like he's their guy and they want him badly. So, it's one of those where it would be nice if we can get both. Josh is saying Molina and Hickey are what we are being linked to. I mean, it'd be nice if we can get both, but it looks like they're going to just stick with Cedric, or that's what they've told The Athletic. And a lot of times, and I also want to not remind you guys, but also just put that little bug in the air of a lot of times Arsenal will tell their mouthpieces what they're willing to say to the Arsenal fans. So a lot of what they say is played down and media ready information. So instead of saying, oh, well, we want to get 6 players and we want to get this player and this player, they're saying what the bare minimum is, you know what I mean? So that we don't get our hopes up. And that's what a lot of this really feels like. I wouldn't be surprised if we were looking to see if we could bring in a right back, but they played it down so that we don't get our hopes up, which I kind of understand, especially because we'll probably have to sell Bellerin in order to do so. So there's 250 of you guys still in here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Let's keep it moving. So this one I think is funny. So Arsenal will still be in the market for a left-sided central defender should an appropriate opportunity arise. As of yet, no clear plans have been communicated to William Saliba or his representatives. We all know that there's things going on with Saliba. Arteta said he wants to keep him, la la la. But the more important one is the left-sided central defender. Has Arteta bought a center back in every single one of his windows? He has to have.
Gabriel, Marie, and then he bought. Yeah, he has. In every window, we've actually spent money, because you can say January we didn't do anything. So
yeah, I mean he loves a center back. I do think we need a left-sided center back cover for Gabriel. I just don't think we should spend a lot of money on it. And I actually think the opposite of you. I think a lot of you would want somebody younger. I actually think we need to bring in somebody older. I think we need some experience because we have 3 young center backs. It'd be nice to have somebody that has a little bit more experience in and amongst them. So left-sided central defense is a really interesting one that I think will probably get done because Arteta loves a center back. But now that I have you here and you've obviously watched this person play so much, and he's been linked to us and we almost got him in January, would you take Nketiah?
You know what? You know when you said, "Oh, you've watched him," I was like, "Yeah, my head went straight." Well, actually, I haven't watched him. That's the rally. He's been injured the whole time. He barely plays. That's the
he hasn't played in 5.
I can't.
But it's an opportunity. Honestly, they said if an opportunity arises, if he's not injured and he's walking and he doesn't need a wheelchair, then the opportunity is there.
He's genuinely, he's going to walk to the airport and get injured. That's what happened.
No.
He doesn't need to play. Because the thing is, I can't even remember the last time he played like that. I sometimes forget he's a Barca player. I'm just looking at him like, oh yeah, he's still here. I forgot.
I think he's a reserve. He's probably in reserves. He's probably not even really on the roster. But what I will say is that
Do you
This
know
is
what? He
kind
is
of,
quality though. Like at Lyon, he was
I mean,
actually really good.
he's not crap. He just is so injury prone.
Yeah.
But what I will say is that like we don't need somebody that's going to cost a lot. We don't need somebody who's going to play like a million minutes. It just needs to be somebody left-footed that probably has more experience. And so he kind of fits that. I think you could probably get Barcelona to give him to us, like you said, like on a loan, or because they need those wages off. Like they need his wages off the bill, I think, as well. So I would pressure them. I would pressure them to try to get a loan with an option.
But what does he add
So
though? That's my question. Is like, I
he
don't
has.
think.
I mean, he's a World Cup winner. He has experience. He's
Yeah.
28. You know, I think it's better than getting a kid. Honestly, we have too many kids in the team. Would you die?
Um, I just don't know if he. I just don't know. Like, I just don't know if he would ever be like. Because for me, I'm past the point. I just think he's injured. That's just his life now. Like he's permanently injured. But I mean, look, if there is like, I mean, obviously we wouldn't sign him if there was concerns that he can't recover from this. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I think we can do better. I know you want like the age, which is fine. We can go experience. Try get Longley off them. At least he'll be fit.
I think I think I'd be willing to take a small gamble on him if it was a loan with an option, and we just needed a couple of minutes off of him. I think Titty the level of the team, Titty Sags level. Okay, yeah. So, but yeah, I would take a risk on it, but I do think left-sided center back will get taken care of in some way. I don't think it'll be anything that we spend a lot of money on. And we just need somebody that can step in if Gabriel needs a rest or whatever. And he does have experience. The issue is, will he be fit? Because the reason why he didn't come to Arsenal in January is because he got an injury. And I'm like, how did he get injured? He doesn't play. How did he get injured? He doesn't play.
Gabriel's gonna need to step back in for him because he gets injured. Like it's gonna be so ironic. We're gonna be like, wait a minute, you're meant to step in for him, and now you're injured. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'll try, I don't. I can't. I'm not getting behind. This is the one I can't get behind just because.
I mean, I agree with Josh. I think we could press them to give him to us for free just to get the wages off. Like I honestly do. And like, I mean, what do you
But if
do?
he's
I mean,
always injured, then it defeats the point of why we're trying to get him.
I don't know. I don't know. You just take a risk, a small risk. Just take
No,
a
but then
small
go for
risk.
Longley for me, like, because Longley's another one they're trying to get rid of. But at least he's fit and he can actually come in.
I don't know. Get somebody.
Yeah,
Get somebody, but yeah, get somebody. But I would prefer somebody with some experience. Not quite over the hill, David Luiz. Kind of experience, but somebody who still has something to give. I don't know if Diddy has anything to give, but there you go. Seawalder. How the F did you get fired on your day off? You guys know I love Friday. That is my jam. So yeah, there you go. But that was an interesting one as well. So I just kind of wrote this out really quick and like, am I dreaming and need to wake up, or could this happen? Could this be the window? Personally, if this is the window, I take it and I don't complain. I wouldn't complain, but it would probably take some sales. This would be it. Any changes you'd make? Are we covering enough positions? Or do you think? I mean, the reality is if we don't get Victor Osimhen and we drop somebody else in there, then we have money to do something else.
Yeah, I'd be really happy with that window. I'd be like, okay, you know what? Because the reality is, we're never gonna know whether a player comes in and hits the ground running, but you can see the ambition that they've tried to at least raise the level. So you can't fault them for that. But I think you know which one I'm gonna say. I just think Tielemans for a while. That's the only thing I would do differently. But when I'm looking at everything and I'm trying to put everything together about Leon's only now rating him at 12.5 million. there's things in my head that I'm now starting to think, oh, am I not seeing something? Because like how can a player that good not be rated? Like it just doesn't make sense to me. Like so maybe I'm missing something that's there because I've got sort of a love affair or whatever with Awar. But yeah, no, I'll be very happy. I'll be like, you know what, we've covered all bases. We need two strikers because two are going out. Yuri Tielemans definitely improves the team, especially in this pseudo Xhaka role, as he's wanted more advanced. So yeah, I'll be quite happy with that. I think Aaron Hickey, obviously, Saliba's coming in. He's basically a new signing. He's going to be introduced to the squad. So yeah, yeah. No, I'll be over the moon with that. I actually would be like, okay, you know what? We've got the team where Arteta's got no excuses to go in and get the job done.
Yeah, I mean, people are saying, "Oh, Jess, it's the best you could possibly do." So of course you're not going to complain. I mean, there are scenarios where, like I said, you bring in, this
Ooh,
this
Pepe for 30
also.
million. I completely forgot. Yeah, that's 30 million already.
Who's paying us 30 million for Pepe?
Oh, someone will. I'm
We're gonna
sure.
do a loan. People are gonna do a freaking loan. Um, but yeah, like this is the best that I think we could do. But like at the same time, people are asking questions around, what about the DM that we've all kind of been screaming out for. But I just think when you re-sign El Neni, you're kind of saying we're not going to get another midfielder. You have Lakanga there. You have El Neni and Xhaka that can all play in holding midfield. So, and you have Thomas Partey, who's the clear starter. So it's kind of like when you have that, I do think you have the numbers already, and you're kind of making that signal like we're not going to go into midfield or do anything. But Ameli asked an interesting question around where is backup competition for Saka? What about right wing to cover because your boy Saka was played into the damn ground? And when I looked at this and I was like, okay, well, what does the lineups kind of look like? There is kind of a gap there. If you were to bring in Osimhen and Jesus, your starting lineup looks banging. But when you strip it back, and this is like your worst case scenario, Hutchinson is there. That's not good enough, is it? You need something else. So maybe
But is
Osimhen
this
wouldn't
if
be.
Ottoman's injured? Because you could but Jesus plays more right wing than he does left wing. So you could.
So I mean, you could play him over here, but then who plays central if
Oh,
Osimhen
is
can't
this
play?
all Ottoman's in? Oh, right. Okay. Okay. I got you. I got you.
Yeah, so you don't really have that competition or substantial backup for Bukayo if you do go for such a big striker, so maybe it would be better to spread that money around a little bit more.
Maybe a
Because I'm,
Gakpo does make more sense to an Osimhen, maybe, or because I would go
yeah,
Jesus over if I had the choice. I would go Jesus over Osimhen, and then you're at least that way you've got call it 100 million or whatever it is. Maybe it makes more sense when you look at it in this perspective.
yeah. I mean, because when you look at, I'm always like, so in worst case scenario, and everybody's injured, what are we looking at? And this is pretty much what it is. And I still think you're missing, like you said, some sort of another attacker or a winger, or something like that. You don't have it. And the midfield looks like that. I mean, that's pretty much what we're looking at now, which isn't good enough. And then you have Cedric, but the left side of your, or Saliba, Nketiah, and Hickey is not that bad. So yeah, yeah, it's not great, is it, if you spend all your money on Osimhen? And that's why I like to look at it, because then it makes it more, you can actually see it. O'Malley says that right side looks horrendous. Tommy says this is why you extend Eddie.
No, well, you still have because he'll be a third choice, so you'd still have an
Yo,
issue of him not wanting to stay.
Yo says I thought they already signed that Brazilian to replace Pepe. I heard that he might go out on loan.
Oh, is that
So
the
what?
Marquinhos guy?
Yeah, but I mean, you could put him there, but I mean, who knows what he is like. Manib says ESR can play right wing and bring in Lakanga. So, I mean, this is like worst case scenarios type thing, but I don't know. But the starting lineup is
I'm just
banging
thinking.
though.
Yeah, but if it gets, I mean, if it gets that bad that we have to go what's on the right, I know it can because it's Arsenal, but I have serious questions what's going on at this club. How can you have?
Imagine we put out that lineup, yo. I would cry. Oh my God, I would
I'd be
die.
like, what happened? Like, did I'd have to investigate the club because I'd be like, what's gone on that everyone's out? But yeah, no, I get what you're trying to do there with like the whole. Obviously, if that's like worst case, like backup options, and like this is a 2-11s that we have. But if I see that, I'm crying. I'm just not gonna
Oh my
watch the game.
gosh.
I'm gonna be like, nah, I can't do it.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those, and it's just, yeah, you don't want to ever see the right lineup, but I mean the left one, I mean it's a banger. I'm not gonna lie. Like this lineup, if we started off the season like this, I might shed tears, you know.
Do you know
But
what? Though?
so
Like, because even if you look at, if you say, for example, take Party out and put El Neni there, it still looks fine. Let's say you take Tierney out and put Hickey there, still looks good. I'm just looking at the ones who get injured all the time. The only other concern I'd have is maybe Tomiyasu and Cedric, but then you'd have someone next to him anyway, or you could bring Saliba there. So I'm looking at the players who constantly get injured and look at it that way. I'm quite happy with that. But obviously, football doesn't always work in ideal scenarios. So
yeah.
yeah,
I think the issue is like we have to make sure that, you know, if you have the left lineup, that you only have to pop in a Cedric. You know, you only have to pop in like
yeah.
every once in a while. Like we just don't want to see them for long periods of time, and we don't want multiple backups in there at one time. But I do think ultimately, like osimhen plus Gabriel Jesus would take up so much of your budget that you wouldn't be able to like spread it around that much. So as much as I think the left is a banger, it might be Jesus playing through the middle and we bring in a Cody Gakpo instead, or, you know, a Sinistera instead. And we spread that money around because honestly, if you don't get osimhen and you go get Sinistera or Gakpo to play off of the left, slash, they can also, you know, Gakpo can play center back. You could actually get a right back too. And, you know, that could make a huge difference. So there you go. But I just wanted to kind of play with things a little bit and have the conversation around like, you know, what is the club telling us that they're going to do? What should we expect? And you know, where do we kind of stand with everything? So if you guys want to drop a couple of questions in here, we can, you know, answer a
No,
couple of
Jeff, you're
questions before we
evil.
get out
You're
of here.
evil. You wanted us to go to sleep, right? The ones in the UK anyway. I don't know what time it is in America, with nightmares looking at that team. You wanted us to go to bed with nightmares. Because that's all I'm now gonna think about is like,
Wait.
shit, what if? Like, that's how we like.
I'm always like, okay, so what's the worst case scenario? What if everybody's injured? And yeah, that was pretty rank. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, that is horrible. That is horrible. Do you know what? It, it's horrible. I can't even look at.
Could we win any games? Do you think with that?
Yeah, if we play Sunday League, mate, no, actually, that's a bit harsh. They're not that bad, but we would. No, we would probably lose a lot, like more than win.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think we're winning very many games.
So would
With
you then,
that.
in that situation, would you now looking at that, because I never looked at it that way? So I guess my question is, would you now sacrifice an Osimhen or a Hazel, or who would you sacrifice?
Oh,
And would you go for depth instead?
I would sacrifice Osimhen so that I could get more stuff. Like my
So would you be
initial,
happy with that alternative then?
like
So
if we got
Osimhen's not
Jesus.
there, and then you got Jesus, and then let's say Gakpo or someone instead, and then maybe another signing.
Yeah, yeah, I think I would. I mean, it wouldn't be substantially changing the game like they said in that article, but ultimately, I do think Tielemans and Gabriel Jesus and a winger, a right back, and a left back helps us. You know, I have nightmares about Cedric. I have nightmares, like, you know what I mean. So he cannot be coming off the bench for Tomiyasu for me next season. You know, and if if I have to be honest, but Osimhen is something that would really, I mean, we said it in the chat, like Osimhen number 14, Gabriel Jesus number 9, who says no? And Harry said Nketiah. So there you go. But Saida says, I want to know what Sol's expectations are for Arsenal Arteta next season. Ooh, good question.
So I've kind of answered this one in previous tweets as well. What I've said is if Arteta is back, which it looks like he will be, my expectations are get Champions League football, whether that's through Europa League or top four. That's my first requirement. So if he does it with top four, brilliant. If he doesn't, then you can hybrid the two expectations into one, which is win the Europa League. I want a cup and top four or the Europa League because that covers both. He gets top four with a cup and gets us back into. I think there has to, bare minimum Champions League football has to be on the table. Like there can't be any questions about it, and I'll be willing to be like fifth with the Europa League, but there has I guess the bottom line is Champions League football or you're sacked. That's my bottom line. I now do have to hold him to a better standard than we have, and if he can't deliver and he doesn't and he's not competitive in say, for example, we do go for the Europa League and the Premier League, we have to be competitive in both. If we then decide to go for the FA Cup, I want to see us do it then. So I guess that's my sort of, because I don't want to say he has to win the Europa League, but I just want end of this season, Champions League football has to be there. Otherwise, I don't know how much longer I can be patient with this project.
How much longer I can do
How
this?
much more do you need now? Like how much? Because I've been patient. Like I can actually sit here and say I've been patient. I'm willing to give him time, but
No,
he has to deliver at some point. Like some point, I have to be like, right, you've not even gave me Champions League football in 3 seasons. At this point, you would have spent like near enough £400 million. Like I don't know how much more you need just to get me Champions League football. I have to start questioning the manager at this point, or because I mean the recruitment we can't question because I feel like it is looking like it would be right. So that's me.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, what are your expectations if you haven't said?
Oh, my expectations are you need to qualify for the Champions League somehow. You know, you got to make it through the league or you got to win the Europa League. I expect us to be in the mid to high 70s in points. We have got to draw more games than lose. I think that was a huge issue this past season is that we just didn't, when we lost, we just lost. It was just like, F it, we're just going to lose. I think we need to get this is just kind of like a sidebar, but I need to see us get some points off of the top 2 teams, something at home or something. I'm not going to accept a good half, but it fell apart next season. Like we need to score. Like we haven't scored a goal on Liverpool. We played them 4 times this season. We didn't score not 1 goal, but I see Brentford score goals against them. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, all right, we need to be better at that. And yeah, those are the main things for me. You have to qualify for Champions League. It'd be nice to go in a deep run in some cup competition, but I don't really, we just can't do like we did in the FA Cup. I thought that was disgraceful, just going out to Nottingham Forest, but deeper runs in those competitions would be nice. But those are my expectations. Yo-Yo says last summer, some fans were campaigning for Madison. Buendia, Aarons, Lamptey, and Lautaro Martinez and Abraham. What do you think? Who do you think is the least likeliest of the players linked this summer to join? Osimhen, Dybala. A lot of people were, because we were linked with Dybala. He ain't coming, y'all.
But wasn't that because we were going to get Champions League football? Now that that's off the table, we already know he's not coming.
Well, I mean, they were saying Tielemans wouldn't come without Champions League, and now he's changed his tune, So, but I don't think Dybala comes. I don't think, as much as I want it to happen, I don't think we'll be able to get the Osimhen deal over the line because of how much it's going to cost. So, but I would bet money that Tielemans and Gabriel Jesus play for Arsenal next season. I think they're going to come. I think those are our number 1 and 2 signings this summer. So, yeah. All right, you guys, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Thanks, guys, so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. There's about 230 of you guys still in here, so like the video, subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you guys follow Souls on Twitter at Gunnar Souls and me on Twitter at Jacinio Tweets. Tomorrow, doing a daily download on whatever news. When I wake up, I look and see what's on Twitter, and then I report on it later. So I can't tell you what it's going to be, but just know daily download around 6 to 6:30 UK time tomorrow. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening. Share this with a friend, and we'll talk to you guys in the next one.